The collision happened at 0612. I know the exact time because I was the one logging it. Junior Watch Officer, Karath 3rd Citadel, atmospheric altitude bracket 7. The slow-moving corridor above the Velshori Inland Sea, where the citadels have drifted since before any record I have access to. The 9th Citadel came out of the low cloud bank at relative bearing 42, running dark on failed navigation lights, and struck our port ventral quarter at what the structural log later calculated as 63 kilometers per hour. At Citadel scale, that is enough. The breach opened across 4 residential tiers, 411 injured in the first assessment, 19 dead before the assessment was complete. The 3rd Citadel began losing altitude at a rate our buoyancy engines could compensate for, barely, at full output, which meant we could hold position, but we could not maneuver. And the breach was still open, and we had a medical bay rated for 40 patients. I started filing requests at 0619. The Velshori Sector Authority received the first one and responded in 11 minutes with a form acknowledgement and a reference number. The Karath Civil Emergency Directorate received the one and responded in 22 minutes to inform me that atmospheric tier incidents fell under Sector Authority jurisdiction and I should refile with them. The Andral Hegemony's nearest aid station received the third one and responded that they did not operate in Velshori corridor airspace without a cross-jurisdiction permit, required a minimum of 72 hours to process. I was not asking for a fleet. I was not asking for intervention. I was asking for one field medic and a trauma kit. By 0800, I had 11 reference numbers and 438 injured, because the count had kept climbing as search teams reached the lower tiers. At 08T47, something came through the cloud layer. I heard it before I saw it. A low harmonic that the Citadel's hull read as vibration before my ears read it as sound. Particular resonance of large displacement engines, running at careful, controlled output inside an atmosphere. Not the whine of a shuttle, something heavier. I was at the observation deck's main viewport when the cloud base parted. The hospital ship came through first. White hull, broad and flat for atmospheric operation. The double-ring medical marker on both flanks lit amber in the cloud haze. Behind it, in loose formation, 6 atmospheric rescue craft, smaller, faster, their ventral bays already open, drop lines coiled and ready. They were already in descent toward the Citadel's observation deck. Already at approach angle, already slowing, my comm panel lit. 3rd Citadel, this is the Callaway Earth Medical Rescue Service convoy lead. The voice was a woman's, even and unhurried. The particular flatness of someone who has done this approach a great many times in a great many atmospheres. We intercepted your distress traffic on the atmospheric monitoring band at 0631. We were 12 minutes out. Apologies for the delay. We had to reconfigure the rescue craft for your Citadel's deck dimensions. A pause. We have a surgical team of 22 and full trauma supply load. I need a patient list and your structural schematic. Can you send those now? I had not granted clearance. I had not been asked for clearance. I sent the patient list and the structural schematic. First rescue craft touched down on the observation deck at 0904. I watched from the viewport as the bay door lowered and humans came out. Not rushing, not running, moving with the deliberate economy of people who know that running costs time in places where time matters. They had their equipment staged before the ramp was fully down. A woman in a gray field jacket, the lead physician, I learned later, Dr. Sarah Malk, walked the deck perimeter first, looked at the breach visible in the Citadel's port quarter, and spoke into her collar comm. Within 4 minutes, the second rescue craft had repositioned to the breach level and was deploying a containment frame across the open section. No one had asked her to do that either. I went down to meet her. She was shorter than I expected. The Karath stand tall, and I had some vague impression that humans matched our proportions, which they do not. And she was already looking at a schematic display strapped forearm when I found her. She looked up when I introduced myself. Watch Officer Sailvon, she said. Where are your worst cases? Took her to medical bay. What followed I have tried to log precisely, because the Karath record things and I am a Karath. Precision is what I have when other things fail me. The surgical team from the Callaway set up a secondary triage station on Deck 3 within 40 minutes of landing. They had their own equipment, tables, lighting, sealed supply cases, and they did not ask us to clear the space. They simply worked around what was there, adapting with a quietness that I found, in the hours that followed, more affecting than I had expected. The 6 rescue craft cycled through the breach level, through the morning, extracting trapped residents from the collapsed tiers. The humans used cutting tools I did not recognize on Karath, structural material they had apparently never worked with before, and they adapted. I watched one of their engineers study a load-bearing column for about 90 seconds, and then begin cutting with the confidence of someone who had done it 100 times, which he had not, because no human had ever been inside a Karath citadel before that morning. By midday, they had reached all 461 injured. By early afternoon, they had performed 47 surgeries. The 19 dead had been moved with a care that I noticed and did not know how to categorize in the log. I kept calling up to the Velshori Sector Authority. They kept responding with reference numbers. At some point, I stopped reading the responses. Dr. Malk found me on the observation deck at dusk. The cloud layer had thinned through the afternoon, and the Velshori Inland Sea was visible below us, copper-colored in the late light, the surface barely moving. The citadel's altitude had stabilized. The structural team had reinforced the breach from outside with a frame that our engineers said would hold 60 days minimum. I was standing at the viewport with nothing useful left to do, which is its own particular feeling. She stood beside me and looked out at the sea for a moment. "We'll have the last critical cases stabilized by midnight," she said. Our 3 most serious patients. We'd like to transfer them to the Callaway for the next 72 hours. Better monitoring than we can run from the deck station." She paused. "With your authorization." "Granted," I said. "Thank you." She looked out at the sea again. "We're going to leave a 4-person team and a supply cache on the observation deck. Standing station. This corridor isn't covered by any sector authority's emergency response, and the atmospheric monitoring band picks up a lot of traffic from these citadels." Another pause. "If you have another incident, if any of the other citadels do, call on the same frequency we came in on. We'll hear it." I looked at her. "You're offering standing coverage," said, "for the whole corridor." "It's a gap," she said. "We cover gaps." She said it the way she said everything. Flat, practical, like it was simply the next item on the checklist. Then she went back inside to check on her team. I filed the full incident log at SO 200. The following morning, when the last of the critical transfers was complete, and the deck station was established and the Callaway had moved to holding position above the cloud layer where it would stay. The log has a classification field. Standard Karath incident logging requires you to classify the responding authority, sector aid, hegemony mutual assistance, private contractor, other. I sat with that field empty for a while. I had filed 11 requests to 9 different authorities and received 11 reference numbers and no medics. Something had intercepted my traffic on a monitoring frequency, reconfigured 6 rescue craft for a citadel deck it had never seen, and come through the cloud layer with 22 surgeons and a promise to stay. I typed other in the field. Then I deleted it and typed Earth, filed the log, and went to stand at the viewport. Until the sun came up over the inland sea, and the Karath's hull caught the light above the clouds, white and quiet and still there.